clouds on, singing to the...
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds where the sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning for the September 18th, 2023. Today's show is brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420pod at SeatGeek.com today to save yourself $20 on your first purchase there at SeatGeek. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to bellyupsports.com for all the great articles and great podcasts that are out there, such as the Corner Booth podcast, Craft Food Sports, and the Sports Stove podcast as well. And that's many, many more on that great network we're on. And thank you very much for all of you who watch us on YouTube on a daily basis. If you haven't subscribed to that button, hit the button right there down below, and let's get our subscription rates are up. And thank you for all those who listen to the podcast form as well each and every day. We greatly appreciate it. Well, the Mike Babcock era, it's over before it even started. Mike Babcock decided to call her good, gave his resignation yesterday on a Sunday afternoon. We probably thought no one was going to be watching or listening or what was going on. NFL games going on, people at the lake or in the golf course, whatever it might be. And he thought he might be able to say, just ride off in the sunset, unbeknownst to anybody. But anyways, the Mike Babcock era is all done after, I guess we'll call it pitcher gate, whatever you might want to call it, phone gate, or who knows, out there in Columbus with the Blue Jackets, with the hockey team out there. But yeah, it's all done. As reported last week as first reported by the guys at Spit and Chicklets podcast, the biggest hockey podcast that's out there, bar none. Paul Biznasty, he got some messages from some players on the Columbus Blue Jackets saying that Babcock was up to his old tricks before the season even started, wanting to see people's phones to get to pitchers, see what's on their phones, on their camera rolls. He was putting up on TV and air dropping or whatever it's called, air streaming or whatever the crazy kids call it nowadays. But they were up there for everyone to see. And then Babcock and him, he said it was a good way for him to get to know players and get to know his new staff and everything else. I guess it's not the first time he's done this, but something came about, and it was odd to everybody who first heard about it when it first came out on Spit and Chicklets. Everybody, that's kind of weird. Like if you want to meet somebody or get to know somebody, go for a drink or a burger or something. Looking at someone's phone and looking and it's just an odd situation that you wouldn't do on a normal job in a normal situation. But it's just one of those things that Babcock, it's how he holds things over people's heads. It's a control thing with Babcock, and that's how it's always been with him. And it's odd that he was given the opportunity to become a coach. We'll get to that in half a second. But it's odd that on the timing of it all, that with the Boone Jenner, the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and and Johnny Gaudreau, one of their superstar with the Blue Jackets there in Columbus, that they came out and made a statement that, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. We did it. I did it. It's not that big of a deal. And the team put out a statement and said, yeah, it's not a thing. It's a team bonding thing. It's a get to know thing. It's not a big deal at all. We don't care. It's a non-story. It's a non-issue. And the Columbus Blue Jackets and Mike Babcock and the rest of them thought that this whole thing was going to go away, but it obviously didn't, because for some reason the NHLPA, Marty Walsh, Ron Hainsey, they decided to make their way down to Ohio. They took a bird down there and said, hey, there's something not right here. We're going to do our own little investigation, because some other players must have said something or reached out to the NHLPA and said, you know what, this isn't right. This isn't normal. This isn't how things are done in the real world, or in the normal world, I guess. Not the professional sports is a real or normal world, but it's just one of those things where these guys said, hey, there's something not right. Or for some reason, Ron Hainsey, who did play in Columbus for a cup of coffee there, he went down there and they did some investigating. And then for some unknown reason, they went and got the report back to world headquarters there in New York City. And then on Sunday morning, it came out that, that's it for Mike Babcock, citing that can't move forward with the distraction that he's going to be to the hockey team. That was in the best interest of both parties to part ways before the season even started. Babcock didn't coach one game. He didn't go behind the bench for one practice. Who knows if he put on at the rookie camp that they have in July after the draft, maybe he had the skates on there. Who knows? But in general, Mike Babcock didn't do anything but damage to a hockey team there in Columbus that he never coached one game for. The damage that he did to that locker room can't be misstated or can't be not talked about, because you think about a guy who didn't coach one game now has torn a locker room apart, because now you have a situation where the team forced their two leaders to go make a statement that may or may not have been true, but they were forced to talk about something they didn't want to. Two, you have a coach that is generally known to be a bit of a jerk to this is PG rated 14:20 in the morning, right? So a bit of a jerk to come into that locker room and get people to do things that they don't want to do. So how much trust do the regular Joes of that hockey team, and how much trust is like an Adam Fantilli, second overall draft pick? How much trust does he have in the best interest of himself and the rest of his teammates in the management group, which is Jarkko Kukalinen, and I think I said that right, and John Davidson. So how much trust is there with that? And then you got to think inside the locker room with the players, how much trust do they have? Because they might smell a rat because somebody had to have reached out to the NHLPA, and then, or maybe the NHLPA just reached out to them and did it themselves. But there's going to be division in that locker room, and locker rooms are a very tight-knit group. Yes, not everyone gets along no matter what. You put 20, 25 guys in a room, they're all going to get along. It's just how things are. But now somebody's probably going to say, we have a rat in our midst. We don't really want to talk about this at all. And we got to watch what we talk about and who has each other's backs, because you got to be kind of going in the right direction. And for someone to reach out and say something, someone's going to have a bit of a hurt feelings report on that. So you have a team that's going to be damaged before it even gets going. It's crazy how a guy, by all accounts, is not very well liked throughout the National Hockey League. Actually, let's not sugarcoat it. Mike Babcock is hated throughout the National Hockey League, and how he ended up getting that job. And that's not just by players of the present, that's by players of the past. Players of the past, now they're out of the National Hockey League. They're saying a lot more things. They're saying a lot of things about how this guy is just an ultimate jerk, and it's all about head games. It's all about control, and how Mike Babcock has been able to make a career out of doing that. You remember like he was let go in 2019 by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he was owed $6 million a year for 4 years, and they were more than happy to say, you know what, thanks, bye, see ya. You're not bigger than the team. You're not bigger than anything else. So it's time for you to go. And so Mike Babcock found himself in a situation at the end of his tenure in Toronto with a young Mitch Marner there, where he asked Marner to make a list of the work ethic of all the guys in the team, and he just wanted to know, because maybe Marner wasn't working hard enough, and Marner probably just figured, well, maybe he just wants to see where I rate myself and if I could get going. But in true Mike Babcock fashion, he decided to air that list that Marner compiled, and said, okay, this guy's not working hard. Marner thinks that this guy's not working hard, that this guy's got working hard. So that put a rift in that dressing room, and it made Marner look like a bad guy to his teammates, and it made Babcock look like a bad guy to everybody. And nobody was blinked an eye in Toronto Brass to say, you know what, Mitch Marner and our team is much more important than Mike Babcock. We'll give him $6 million a year to not be here. And the Leafs have a lot of money, but you never want to pay someone for not providing a service, right? So Babcock was shown the door, and by all accounts, he was out of the National Hockey League forever and ever, amen, to the delight of many hockey people right around the world, that he wasn't going to be coming back. And but for some reason, the worst secret in hockey was that Mike Babcock was making his return to Columbus when their season ended. The contract was up with Toronto in July, so July 1, he was going to be the next coach. It kind of went away, but it was just hovering in the background until, like I said, that contract was up and Columbus named him their head coach for the upcoming season. It's just not. It's not a good look for that franchise. It's not a good look for, or maybe we're over speculating here, but it's not a good look for Boone Jenner, the team captain, to back a guy and not back his teammates, to go and have the franchise ask Jenner or demand Jenner, or however it was done, to say, hey, can you make a statement and cover up for this guy who's a known jerk? So how much faith does the fourth line winger, or the new guy in the dressing room who doesn't have much clout, how much faith does he have in these guys to have their back later on in the season when something's not going right? Like, you look at a guy like Jenner, you look at a guy like Goudreau, who are rich beyond belief with contracts, and they're going to be there for a long time. They're the faces of that franchise. But the other guys who are just trying to break into the league or stay in the league. How much faith do they have in these two guys to have their back later on when things get going in October, and then when things are, as always, don't go very well in Columbus? How much faith are they going to have in their team leaders to have their back and be able to go to management and say, you know what, this guy's having a rough go over. It's not his fault. They're not going to want to go to these guys because management kind of has these guys under a barrel by the sounds of it too, all because of the way Mike Babcock treats people. You look back at Babcock's track record over the years, how he sat out Mike Modano, who was a milestone game. I think it was going to be his 1000th NHL game or 2000th. I can't remember whatever it was, but he sat him out, and that was it for Modano's career, regular season game career in the National Hockey League when he was with Detroit. You look at Chris Chelios, the way Babcock sat him at one of the Stadium Series games in Chicago, that he just didn't even play him. He dressed him, sat him on the bench, and I think Chelios had a couple of pops. And I'm not just going to put him out there in the third period for one shift. And Chelios said, "No, I'm not going out there." You look at a guy like Mike Commodore. Mike Commodore's not the best guy either. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but Commodore was he couldn't believe, I read something today, that he couldn't believe how happy he was, and he was probably over celebrating that Babcock was gone. He's well documented how much he hates Mike Babcock and the like, and it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing throughout hockey. It's not a new thing throughout the sports world that guy's a complete dick, and the way he things going. Like I said, for the Leafs to say, here's $6 million a year to jump in your Ford truck, go back to Saskatchewan to never be seen again, it's odd that he was given an opportunity to be the head coach in the National Hockey League again, especially with the way the culture has changed a little bit. It's an odd thing that Babcock did. Is it illegal? I don't know. It's odd what Babcock did, asking to see these guys' pictures on their phone to get to know their families and this and that. It's an odd situation. I kind of understand it to an extent now, but hear me out here before you say, Brent, you're an idiot. When I was working in the construction world in my past life there, we had a thing called Why I Work Safe. And what we did was we would take pictures and we would put faces to names about people, because the guys that I worked with, we worked from all different kinds of towns and everything else. So we would put pictures up on the wall of the reasons why you work safe, whether it be for your daughter, your son, your wife, your mom, your dad, or whatever it might have been. So the why you work safe thing was a thing. So you get to know people and have a thought process as to why we went to work for weeks at a time, sometimes months at a time, didn't get to see our families. And so it was one of those team building things and team bonding things that was up on the wall for all to see. So maybe that was all this was supposed to be. But with Babcock, there's always an ulterior motive. There's always something that could come out later on, that he could hold things over people's head. And that's a lot of people have that against Babcock. You read and listen to other podcasts and shows on YouTube, that people have a lot of hatred towards Babcock because the way he would treat people. Frankie Corrado he's on Toronto radio now. He was on a Vancouver station the other day talking about how his disdain for Mike Babcock and how he would hold things over his head, and he would never say things to Frankie, but he would just stare at him and just shake his head. And so Corrado never really knew where he stood. I got to thinking a little bit about this, the pitcher gate end of things too, is that, yeah, it's odd, it's weird. And for people to say it's snowflakes that are ruining the game and the way kids are nowadays, and they get whatever they want. Just imagine if you worked in a factory or a bakery or a grocery store or an office or Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts or wherever, or selling car parts like Jim, the fan of the van, does, and your new boss come up to you and said, "Hey, give me your phone. I want to take a look at some pictures." You think, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm not letting you do that." Like, I'm not letting you do that. There's stuff on phones. Like, I have nothing on my phone. I have nothing to hide, nothing incriminating against my friends and family and anything else. I have nothing to. So if somebody wanted to do it for me, it's fine. But people do have things on their phones, some pretty incriminating stuff, that people take pictures of things. There's a reason why there's a lock system on people's phones, so you can't just go in there and start scrolling through things. So it's just completely odd. And so for the people, the anti-woke crowd, I don't know what woke even means, but for the anti-woke crowd and the the snowflake crowd of people calling out the players on this, I don't, because nobody would want that situation. Nobody would want someone looking through their phone and taking pictures. And it's odd that you would want to do that. And it's odd that but it's a thing. If you're a young kid just breaking the National Hockey League, Mike, your new head coach, who's Mike Babcock, who's known to be a bit of a hard ass. He asks you to do it, you just do it, right? And that's the way the hockey culture is. And that's the way the culture throughout sports is. So you just do it, and you kind of just follow your coach's orders, I guess. And you go, okay, I guess I'll do it. Like, it's just really, really odd. I find it's odd to me that Babcock gets to think to hold over his head, because I would never ever even ask someone to give me their phone to look at pictures. I'd say, like, if I hadn't seen somebody for quite some time or whatever, and hey, how's the kids? Oh, I have a picture here. Here's a look at this, and there it is. It's done, and you go on your merry way. To sit there and scroll through a person's phone like allegedly Babcock was doing, not just like a one-on-one in the dressing room, but he was there in the parking lots, whatever, and just looking through pictures and going on and on and on, unbeknownst to the players happening. And so it's kind of or thoughts or knowing. So it's an odd situation. And another thing that got me thinking, that let's just say, and for the sake of conversation, that one of the players that on the Columbus Blue Jackets was gay. There's nothing wrong with being gay. I'm not saying that at all, so don't at me or anything. But let's say that one of these players on the Blue Jackets was gay, and that he hadn't come out to either his teammates or his parents or the rest of his family or the team or NHL or whatever in general. He hadn't come out of the closet, because like in today's NHL culture, and it's better, but there is still the hockey culture that, there is the not anti-gay, but it's like, you know what, let's just not be. And like, so the hockey players are generally supposed to be the machismo and macho and all that stuff. So there is not an anti-gay factor, because everybody's included now, but there are still some people who feel they can't come out of the closet for reason A, reason B, or reason C, and that's their priority 100%. They're just not ready yet. But let's say that there's a picture on one of these guys' phones that was this guy with his boyfriend, maybe, or something, just or kissing or holding hands, walking, that they were in Santa Monica this summer, and that was on their phone, and all of a sudden Babcock can hold this over his head, or it gets let out to the media, or it gets let out at any point throughout the season, and this kid just wasn't ready for it to come out. So there is these things that can come out, and looking at people's pictures and having this odd situation come about is a really odd situation, and I quite like that there was players that were not afraid to come out and say something. There were people that were not say, you know what, this doesn't feel right. Something's not right about this. I'm not sure why I feel weird about this, but I don't feel right, and it's not right, and I think I need to talk about it. And that's good that the hockey culture has that, because I lived that hockey culture not 20 years ago, it's 30 years ago, man, I'm getting old. And there was a lot of don't talk about anything that happens in the locker room. Don't talk about anything that happens between you and your coach. And the bullying that would happen between coaches and players and GMs and players, and on it went. And it was brutal. Like, it was absolutely brutal how the what went on back 30 years ago. I can't imagine what it was like 40 years ago. And there's still a bit of a culture there that goes on in the world, but it's getting better. And it's a good thing that kids are, and it's not just in hockey or baseball or sports. It's better throughout the world that people aren't afraid to talk out about things. And it's not a woke thing, and it's not a snowflake thing, and it's nothing to do with that. It's, you know what, people are saying, if something isn't right, I should say something about this, because if it doesn't feel right and it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right. So people, when they come out and do talk about it, it's a good thing, not just for hockey, but for culture in general. And to let that out there, that, you know what, I'm a human being, and I have my rights, and I have my feelings that need to be felt and heard, I guess, is one way I'm trying to put it. So it's a nice thing that hockey has that, and that the culture of the sport is changing. Why these same coaches that were the bullies back in the 90s and 2000s and 2010s, because that's a long time ago, why these guys are still allowed to coach the National Hockey League, and why they get called up a year in, year out, and they just have recycle these coaches all throughout junior hockey. We talked about the Bill Peters thing here in Lethbridge a few weeks back, when he got rehired not rehired, but hired by the Hurricanes here in town to come out after his situation with Akeem Alou from 14 years ago. But like, for Mike Babcock to even be given the opportunity by the Rangers is an odd situation. Jarkko Kukalainen and John Davidson some explaining to do to their team to figure out why this happened, because it's an odd thing that Mike Babcock, the known jerk, and the way the culture is nowadays, the way the culture is better nowadays, why this bully would be allowed to come in to an NHL locker room. Because now kids hold a lot more. The players hold a lot more. I'm not saying all, but they hold a lot more cards nowadays than players used to. Like, the damage that this guy, that Babcock, has done for not even coaching this hockey team, I don't think will be. It'll be turned around, but it's going to take some time for the players to put some trust back into these guys and everything. you're going to do, because it's you got to think, like, there's a lot of free agents thinking, why the hell would they hire that guy? Like, what other bad decisions are they going to make in the very near future? Why would I want to sign with a team who would make that kind of decision to hire a guy like Mike Babcock, who's known to be an absolute dickhead? The whole thing just reeks a little bit. The timeline is so strange to me, how it came out on Spit and Chicklets, and the Boone Jenner put out his statement, and then the Blue Jackets put their statement out saying everything was fine, and then the PA came in, and then he was gone. There's something more that's going to come out of this. There's no way that this whole story's done. Maybe like I said, the Blue Jackets probably wanted to get out in front of this a little bit and get so maybe if we get rid of him, we can hide some other stuff and it won't be talked about ever again. Out of sight, out of mind. The hockey culture is different. The Blue Jackets learned that the hard way this weekend, throughout the weekend. It's just a different world we live in now. We don't have a ton of privacy because these phones are all over the place, and no matter what, you're under scrutiny at all times. Like everything gets videoed and pictures going on. So when you do have something private, you probably want to hide it. And for Babcock to go out there, and I don't know if he demanded or how the wording was to let me see the pictures. It's an odd situation that I'm glad that went away. It's not a snowflake thing. It's not a woke thing. It's not a cultural thing. This guy's Mike Babcock's a bad dude. He's been a bad dude for a long time, and he shouldn't have been given that opportunity to coach. Like it's Johan Franzen played with the Detroit Red Wings, rich beyond belief, NHLer, the whole bit for a lot of years. He was forced to tears one day by Babcock on the bench, and Babcock gets off on embarrassing people and belittling people, and he's done that for a very long time. He did it with Mitch Marner, trying to belittle him and embarrass him in front of his teammates, and he tried to do it this weekend or last week, whatever it was. That Spit and Chicklets uncovered this pitcher gate with the Blue Jackets. It's crazy that this guy is given an opportunity to still be part of the hockey culture, and hopefully the hockey culture gets a little bit better every year. And I think the hockey culture in general got a little bit better yesterday when Mike Babcock said, thanks by sea, or no thanks by sea, I guess it would have been. And he went off into the sunset, hopefully never to be seen again in the hockey world. And it's crazy this guy gets speaking engagements and everything else, that he's still out there in the public after it's well known. The guy's a well-known asshole, and there's not many people who have a lot of good things to say about him. I actually read something today. There's two types of people in this world: those who hate Mike Babcock, and those who haven't met him yet. So that says a lot. I mean, there's people who hate me, and there's people who hate people listening to the show. But like for everybody for this guy to say that everybody hates this guy, it's a bad thing. It's for the world to be able to speak out about abuse nowadays in the hockey world. And you remember, like, I'm not comparing this to the Graham James thing, but anything about that how many years ago, right? So, and look how what that did to some lives. So now that the hockey culture, people aren't afraid to say stuff anymore. People are afraid to not afraid to talk about their feelings and their rights and things that are on the inside. It's a good thing that Mike Babcock or that people are talking about the bad guys in hockey, like the Mike Babcock's world, and he's gone, and people are standing up for themselves. And I think it's a good thing, because like I said, I went through it years ago, and there were some brutal situations. The hockey world, it can be a tough one. A lot of kids trying to get in it, and once they're in it, they hope to stay for a long time. And it's a tough one to crack, but it's one of those things that once you're in for a long time, and it's hard to get into. The kids you can make a lot of money, you can have a really good time playing it, but it's hard to get into it. And so you don't want to say something to the Mike Babcocks of the world, because they could blackball you for life. And that's what happened to a lot of these hockey players throughout hockey, and they found themselves their careers over quickly because the abuse and the mind games of guys like this Mike Babcock. It's a brutal situation. I'm glad it's over. The hockey world's a better place without this guy. And moving forward, let's just enjoy that. Like, let's try to enjoy the hockey season coming up. In just over a week, there's going to be games. So, anyways, there it is. There's my little rant for the day. Thank you very much for listening on YouTube, or watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast form of the show. Make sure you tell people about the show as well. But anyway, here is a little word from our friends at SeatGeek.
SeatGeek is the ticketing app for fans like Boomstick Lady. No free throw is safe from the roar of her sticks. SeatGeek helps her find a seat in the direct eye line of the shooter, so she can sit where her boomsticks make the biggest boom. Everybody okay? SeatGeek handles the tickets to sports, concerts, and more, so fans can fan.
Anyways, On this day in 1996, Roger Clemens struck out 20 Detroit Tigers in front of 8,779 people at Tiger Stadium in Detroit, Michigan. Clemens improved his record to 10-12 on the season. He gave up 5 hits in the 4-0 complete game victory and threw 151 pitches, 101 of them for strikes in a game that took 2 hours and 56 minutes to play. Every Tiger struck out at least one time that night, but none more than shortstop Travis Fryman, who struck out in all 4 of his plate appearances versus Clemens. Clemens, what was the last season in Red Sox in a Red Sox jersey, 1996. He would be a member of the Boston Red Sox for 18 seasons, winning 3 Cy Young Awards in that span, a Rookie of the Year. And I think it was the second time he struck out 20 guys in his season for the Red Sox in his career. So on this day in 96, Clemens struck out 20 Detroit Tigers. He was a hell of a player. Just you wonder what he would be like today in the way today's game is played. But no, Roger Clemens struck out 20 on this day in 1996. And happy 64th birthday to Baseball Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg, born on this day in Spokane, Washington in 1959. Sandberg was drafted by the Phillies in the 20th round of the 1978 Major League Baseball draft out of North Central High in Spokane and played 13 games for the Phillies in 1981 before being traded on January 27th, 1982 with Larry Boa to the Cubs for Ivan De Jesus. Sandberg would go on to play 15 seasons with the Cubs in his Hall of Fame career, 282 home runs, 1,061 RBIs, a 285 batting average, 8 Gold Gloves, a National League MVP in 1984, 10-time All-Star, and made the Hall of Fame in 2005. So happy 64th birthday to one of the all-time Chicago Cubs and Baseball Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Thank you very much for listening and following us on. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're still listening or watching everything else. But thank you very much. Let us know in the comment section below what you thought of my take on Mike Babcock. If you agree or disagree or whatever it might be, we like to know. Get a hold of us at 1420sports@gmail.com or just go to our social media and post there and bad mouth or good mouth, whatever it is. But there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's actually not true. But anyways, thank you very much for listening to the show today. And Dave and I are back tonight. Talk some NFL football on the 1420 Sports Bar podcast. I'm sure Dave will have a bit of a take on the Babcock situation as well. So we'll be good one to listen to. It'll be out probably tomorrow, but this will be, Anyways, thank you very much for listening to the show. We appreciate all the support you guys get or give us. And remember, it doesn't matter where you are. It's who you're with. Have a good day, folks. We'll talk to you tomorrow. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar podcast. 4 beer with sports talking a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.